Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel, and the XRP ledger is on the verge of catastrophe. That's the feeling that I'm getting after reading some tweets from XRP community member Tiffany Hayden in terms of an imminent halt. Like we're at any moment we're risking imminent halt of the XRP ledger because from a technical perspective, there's just not enough support. Now, ultimately, a claim was made that the XRP ledger shut down very briefly in 2018, and there's been a debate, and this actually started over a month ago, or no, not a month ago, it's a couple weeks or so ago, and it was just brought to my attention today because out of nowhere, the debate over this reignited, and we're getting closer to the truth here today. So, did the ledger actually shut down? Should we be fearful for the current state of the XRP ledger? Well, we will be getting down to it. And I'll share with you, you'll see the reasons why as I go through the video. I will share with you still at the outset that I think what's happening ultimately in terms of where the disagreement is going down, it seems to me that in the end, there are people saying, like, using the term halt in different ways. So it seems to me that, and this is frequently the case when you're debating somebody, you're using the same word but meaning different things, and then it confuses. And so you'll see what I'm talking about. Before we go any further, if you would please ever so delicately tap the like button, I would definitely appreciate the support. And also, if you are a fan of Ripple and XRP, despite impending doom potentially, go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel. To be clear, also, I am not a financial advisor. I'm not offering financial advice of any kind. Don't buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. And I also need to be clear that what I'm going to do here is share opinions on both sides of this issue. I will share what I think, and I want to be super duper clear that me disagreeing with somebody is not a personal attack against that person. Sometimes people feel offended if they feel strongly about something. You come at them with an opinion that's different than theirs, and sometimes people get feelings hurt. There is no intent to do that. I respect Tiffany Hayden. I respect Galgatron, who's in the tweets here, and Nick Bugalis, who is a Ripple employee. And in fact, I've cited many times that when I jumped into the world of crypto, Tiffany Hayden and Galgatron both, although they seem to absolutely despise each other and have blocked each other, despite that fact, they both really helped me in my early days understand quite a bit about Ripple and XRP, and I'm always going to be appreciative and thankful of that. So where Tiffany's been coming from of late, I just happen to feel differently than her, and that should be perfectly fine. Some people, admittedly, like, they're not tolerating Tiffany's opinions very well. I'm happy to tolerate all different points of view, and I have no beef with that. If she wants to bring up issues, and she has lately, that's perfectly fine. I just happen to not share her view, and that should be perfectly reasonable. We should be able to be adults and disagree and remain respectful. So just to be clear, that is where I am coming from with this. So this begins with this Twitter thread right here. There was a link to an article from you today about Ripple promoting XRP on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I actually talked about that on my channel. That's not the purpose of this video, though. That's just where the thread started here. And somebody named Edward Wilson wrote, kinda a one-sided article. I remember when the validator issue happened, and yes, there were only a few of us that volunteered to help. I was even volunteering to help people set them up. Tiffany Hayden, you are a great person. For the years or have known you, keep being you. To which Tiffany responded, thank you. It's unfortunate that I was so reactionary and rushed in with resources to try and help, because the real issue was that after 7+ years, it's really just a few volunteers that care enough about XRP to try and keep the network up. No other companies or businesses. And I will just say right there, I understand that she has beef with the degree to which other entities are participating in terms of just, running validators, so on and so forth. Okay, that's fine. She can have that opinion. I personally don't feel that way. There's no financial incentive, so it's not surprising to me that there are fewer actors than, for instance, on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? And also, Ripple, they are well aware of the way that XRP was coded from the get-go. Their CTO, David Schwartz, is one of the creators of the XRP ledger in the first place, right? And so they decided to build a model around this, and knowing that they had the largest stake. I just don't see a problem with this fundamentally whatsoever. And to say that there isn't any support isn't true, as I'm going to demonstrate a little in just a moment in this video. There is continued adoption, actually. But I'm saying even with where it's at now, or if you want to go back a couple years ago, okay, like I don't see it as some sort of impending calamity coming here. That's just my humble opinion. So I do differ with Tiffany there, but perfectly fine that she feels that way. I have no beef with that. Opinions are fine, not a big deal. Tiffany Hayden then wrote, if XRP was a meaningful component to anything, somebody would care about keeping the network up at least as much as me, a random internet person, but no. And see, and that's what I get back to. What she's saying is true, but Ripple is doing that, and she has an issue with, Ripple having to carry the torch to that degree. She's made that clear in other tweets as well, and I'm just sitting there like, so what? Like, this, my humble opinion, I disagree. And then somebody jumped in and wrote, read, digest, understand, realize. And Tiffany responded, did the XRP ledger halt on November 13th, 2018? And then Tiffany wrote, somebody tag the sailboat, it's sure to know. Which is somewhat comical. She's referencing Galvatron, whose little avatar here is a sailboat. And so they'd blocked each other, so he got tagged there. And Galvatron said, this is what I see. And it's just like a bunch of blocked out tweets because he just blocks everybody, which is not a critique. I'm just an observation, and it's comical to me. And I say, you do what you want to do, all y'all. No problem with that whatsoever. And so let's take a look at this. Galvatron wrote this then. From the beginning of the ledger, we have been progressing from centralized to decentralized. It started very vulnerable and is becoming more invulnerable with every new validator. There is nothing new about this information, and she's not revealing anything hidden. Right? And so Galvatron then wrote, the evolution has always been to add more validators. The above so-called near tragedy didn't happen because there were enough validators. To avoid coming close in the future, guess what? We'll just keep on trying to add validators. Nothing changes, no panic necessary. And I must admit that I am in line with the way Galvatron clearly feels about this. To me, it's a logical position to have, in my humble opinion. It's okay if anybody wants to disagree. No beef there. I like diversity of thought, but I think Galvatron's making more sense here, and so I align with that. And then Galvatron wrote, it started with just a handful of validators hosted by Ripple, and now there's this, and he linked to xrpcharts.ripple.com. And then he wrote this, a few months ago, the extreme outlier scenario of 6 validators going offline, in parentheses he writes, maintenance, network outage, etc., would have halted the ledger. And again, he cites just a few months ago, that outlier scenario would have halted the ledger. Today, with 35 validators, that would take 8. Exponentially safer with each new validator, which is the direction I certainly suspect we're going to keep heading. And it is certainly my position that even if there were some sort of actual halt, I don't think that that's going to cause some sort of mass panic. I would be surprised if the market acted in any sort of notable way, and even if it did, and there were like some sort of massive price drop, which I'm not predicting, I'd be surprised by that. But if it did, would it just be a depressed price forever and XRP's over? Well, no, it'd probably just bounce. That'd be my guess, and that's why, again, it's not financial advice, but I would certainly suspect that would be the case here. I mean, you can look at what's happening with freaking Ethereum Classic suffering multiple 51% attacks, and it still has a market cap. What the hell is that? You know, you saw what happened with XLM, that's Stellar. They had some network problems. They're still here. So I don't anticipate that it would be something that would ruin everything. I don't think that it's something that would result in Ripple no longer being able to sell on-demand liquidity, the software package, to customers. I don't think any of that would happen. And so let's get a little bit more into the meat here. So, like, where did this claim come from? November 13th, 2018. Did the ledger halt? And she says yes. And so Galvatron ultimately wrote, finally, referencing Tiffany Hayden here, finally she reveals her source and her lack of technical understanding. One or more Ripple nodes went down, including whatever node Toast used. This doesn't mean the ledger stopped. It just means whoever used that node couldn't reach the ledger. And then he writes, proof that the ledger never stopped coming right up. And he's got a chart here. Check this out. And I'll pull this up full screen in just a sec, but take a look at your screen if you care to. He writes, here we see 3 days worth of ledger data compressed to our data points. No unusual minimum or maximum transactions in those hours. But most importantly, the blue line shows consistently that 9 seconds appears to be the maximum time between ledgers. There were no outages at all. And here it is full screen in case you guys care to take a look. There it is full screen. November 13th, 2018. Which seems certainly to be some pretty strong evidence. Then it writes, a wider view of 2 months with the same data. Absolutely nothing unusual about the 13th of November. And I'll pull this up full screen in case you guys care to take a look. Right there. All looks normal, right? So we do need to dig a little bit further, though. And you can see here's xrpchat.com. And this was brought up in the forum here, November 13th, 2008. So the thread existed. There are a number of entries here. People just acknowledging, hey, something's going on. And it was dead until it was recently revived, which I'm about to get into. Let me see here. So here's a tweet. This is from Stuart XRP. All right, so Galgatron stated it didn't halt. And then blockchain developer on the Twitter here wrote, we all know it didn't. And then Nick Bugalis, who is a Ripple employee, I believe he runs their C++ team at Ripple. And he wrote, except it did. I was there and worked to troubleshoot the issue in real time and restarted several of Ripple's validators to allow them to resume normal operation. But hey, what do I know? Trust the sailboat. So obviously, these people are not friends. I got it. Perfectly. That's why I'm neutral. It's kind of, I feel like since I like all of them personally, it's kind of like if like your parents got divorced or something. It's like they hate each other, but you still love both of them. Perhaps it's kind of like that. I feel like my parents got divorced here. And so Galgatron in response to that wrote, except he's talking about Ripple validators going down, not a halted ledger. So let's dig further. Then there was this. I think this is what I wanted to cover next. Sorry, the way this splinters off, it was tough for me to line up all the tabs you can see I've opened at the top of my screen here. The way things splinter off in Twitter, thread-wise, it can be kind of a nightmare to figure this out. So let's see. Nick Bugalis wrote, you are a buffoon, and so is Galgatron. The network did halt because of a technical flaw in the ledger tree code. I'm guessing that's how it's pronounced. TRIE, ledger tree, I'm guessing. I don't know, whatever. That's how I'm going to say it. He writes, a couple of people noticed, but not you and not the idiotic sailboat. Tiffany gave you the information needed to check her claim, but you can't even do that. Instead, you all ganged up on the person who not only knew more about you than the XRP ledger, gave you the unvarnished truth, and took action to correct an issue that she identified, while you lot did nothing but attack, minimize, and bully her. But, unlike you, she's tough as nails. Yeah, and so anything that gets to that level within our community, that's always going to be a turnoff for me. I just think that we should be able to be adults and have conversations, so that's kind of where I stand there. And so I responded earlier when I was looking through all this, and I wrote, if the ledger halted, fine, just show me the evidence and I'll believe it. But as a rational person, I can't just accept such a claim without evidence. If this really happened, how could there not be at least a shred of evidence somewhere? And I'll tell you now, and I'm going to share you exactly the rest of the information that I uncovered, but there's still no evidence. That's that, which is kind of troubling. So where did I want to dig in next? I think this probably somewhere around here. Okay, yeah, check this out. So now we're going to get into some more information from Nick Bugalis right here. Because ultimately, as Galgatron pointed out here, he's talking about, Nick Bugalis is talking about Ripple validators going down, not a halted ledger. And then somebody named Real Use Case on the Twitters wrote, Nick always has a bad attitude, wouldn't employ him. See, that type of personal stuff, I'm not interested in. Anyway, Nick responded, though, and he wrote, not that I'm in the market for a new job, but if I were, I wouldn't apply to work for you anyway, so all is good. Somebody named Mr. Me Whatever wrote, but was it a halt in the system or just a few validators going offline? To which Nick responded, the data Galgatron presents and which you rely on is based on the close_time field and the ledger header and would not reflect the incident. Hard to explain on Twitter, but check out XRP chat, and he provided a link, which I'm going to share with you in just a second. And then Mr. Me Whatever wrote, I still don't see the halt. Validators were still making partial validations, which evidently was slowing down the network, right? Where's the halt in that? And Nick didn't really provide an answer, unfortunately. He wrote, you should research what partial validations are, what they mean, and what they imply. I can only take you to the fountain. I can't make you drink. So I'd love to hear what the actual explanation is, but that's as far as Nick has chosen to go. And so now we get to the part where he actually explains what happened here. And this is why, and listen, just let me know what you think after you hear what I'm about to read that Nick wrote here. Because after I read this, I thought, okay, I have no reason to believe that Nick's lying. I'm just going to, because I have no reason, I'm going to assume that everything he wrote here is true, right? I'll just take it at face value. It's not an extraordinary claim. If it were a crazy extraordinary claim, then I think that there would be a certain level of like a burden of proof. You'd have to prove something, but nothing was wacky about what he stated here. But it's also not evidence. So I mean, I guess what he's citing here, and then what he described here, he's calling a halt, but the ledger didn't stop ever, which is verifiably true. Ledgers were closing the whole time. And so this is the part where I get down to, in my opinion, the way it seems to me, is that Nick and Galgatron are both using the term halt differently, right? And to be perfectly honest, the way that Galgatron is using the term halt to me, and I'm not a programmer, so I'm willing to be persuaded on this. I'm an open mind. Like, I legitimately mean that. But the way that Galgatron is using the word halt makes more sense to me. And so you guys I'm just going to present the information. You can see if you agree with me, with Galgatron or Nick. And again, I'm open to being persuaded, absolutely. If you can make a case as to why this should be considered a halt, cool. Make the case. I'll listen up. No problem with that whatsoever. But here's what Nick wrote. The data that Galgatron is showing would not represent the issue. He's post-processing ledgers based on the close_time field. Here are the facts. Sometime around midnight UTC time on November 14th, 2018, the validator operated by Data 443 stopped issuing validations. This persisted for almost 30 minutes and was probably caused by a network or other outage as opposed to routine system maintenance. Shortly after, the RabbitKick.club validator, operated by Scott Branson, desynced, and he wrote in parentheses, that's generally not a problem, the internet isn't a perfect network, and sporadically issued several validations which propagated poorly and which other validators were generally unable to acquire from the network. This lasted for almost 2 hours. During this time, other validators continued to issue validations, but due to a bug, the healthy validators repeatedly switched working branches for consensus and only issued partial validations, which was what they were supposed to do per the protocol design, as the XRP ledger values safety. Even though a quorum of validators were periodically in agreement on the proper ledger, the partial status of the validations prevented them from fully validating. I personally restarted several of Ripple's validators, and other validator operators restarted theirs. The restart effectively reset the ledger tree state, and he writes it's, in parentheses, it's ephemeral by design. And then he continues, which in turn stopped those validators from switching working branches post-restart, resolving the issue as the restarted validators began issuing full instead of partial validations for the ledgers during this incident. And this, by the way, is why the timeline is represented by the close_time field appears unaffected. And then he writes, to wrap this up, post-incident, the team at Ripple invested a significant amount of time troubleshooting the issues and proposed several improvements, including a commit that improved the calculation of the preferred ledger branch, added additional diagnostic checks to help making troubleshooting easier, and introduced several unit tests to try and exercise the ledger tree code more deeply. And so the part that most caught my attention in terms of just getting to the truth of whether or not the ledger halted was when he wrote this sentence. Even though a quorum of validators were periodically in agreement on the proper ledger, the partial status on the validations prevented them from fully validating. So right there, the question is, does that mean that the network halted, right? That's what I'm honing in on. I think I'm honing in on the right thing, or tell me if I'm wrong, and that's fine. But that's what it looks like to me. So how are we defining halt? That's what it's coming down to. It's like a game of semantics, right? That's ultimately what happened here. And so I tagged Galgatron on Twitter because I just wanted to get his opinion on this, if it's just like a semantics game here. And I wrote, did you end up seeing what Nick wrote in this screen grab, which is what I just read to you? Kind of hard following what's going on the way Twitter threads splinter off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point, it just seems like a disagreement over how to define what a halt of the ledger is. Your take? To which Galgatron responded, and I do appreciate, a halt means no more transactions being processed into the ledger. I don't understand his issue with me using closing timestamp because I can't see a halted ledger still producing regular blocks with normal timestamps. So again, and that's why, and I appreciate the response very much. That's why, again, I don't I think it's just an issue with defining what a halt is, which it sounds kind of like that's what it's boiling down to. Like I'm not going to dispute what Nick said happened. Galvatron has presented some evidence as well. I'm not disputing any of this. It's like we're just arguing about what the word halt is at this point. Am I right? I can't be the only one that's perceiving it this way. And then in response to what Nick wrote there, that whole big thing I just read to you, Galvatron also wrote, "This is a pile of smoke screen," and then he tagged Nick Bugalis there. There's data for every ledger in the mentioned time span, so either clearly state that the ledger halted or clearly state that there were other issues, but that it didn't halt. So, yeah, again, and like I'm like, absolutely willing to be persuaded, but with everything, and I spent probably more time than I should have looking into this, preparing for this video. Out of everything that I read, like there hasn't been anything to persuade me to think that the XRP ledger actually halted for any period of time. And so again, like if I were to sit down with Mick, maybe he could persuade me, and that'd be fine. I just haven't seen it yet, and I feel like he made his strongest case right there. So if there's more, love to hear it. I'll be happy to talk about it in the future. But at the time I'm recording this anyway, I remain unconvinced. But I don't want to believe something or not to believe something. I just want the truth, right? So that's all I'm looking for. So that's why I keep saying, like, I'm open-minded, willing to be persuaded. I just haven't seen it yet. So let me know what you think in the comments below. It's interesting hearing the back and forth stuff. I enjoy the portions having to do with insults back and forth. I do not enjoy that part, but I'm just covering what people in the community are putting out there. That's the least fun out of all this, but thinking through all this and just trying to get to the truth is interesting, having a discussion about what this would mean. Like, even if there was a halt on the XRP ledger, does it fundamentally matter? If so, to what degree? I mean, I'd say it matters, but I don't think it's the type of doomsday scenario that it's made out to be by some. And so in reading through some of Tiffany Hayden's tweets, and again, I just respectfully disagree with her. That's all it is. I'm not convinced that the XRP ledger is in dire straits. I just do not. I'll wrap it up there, though. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.